Here's something nobody tells engaged couples. The decision to merge your bank accounts is not actually a financial decision. It's a psychological one. You can run the math, split it 50-50, equalize the contributions, build the perfect spreadsheet, and still miss the entire point. Because whether you merge your money was never the real question. What merging money means to each of you is. And most couples never ask that question until they're already arguing about it. I'll show you why the merge conversation breaks down, even between two financially responsible, well-intentioned adults. And I'll walk you through E and F, engaged for 8 months, who hit this exact wall while planning their wedding. Same income bracket, same stated values on paper, completely different answers underneath to one single question. What does shared money actually mean? Economic intimacy is the capacity to be financially vulnerable with another person. Not the willingness to share a number, the willingness to be seen completely. Debt, spending instincts, financial fear, all of it. Most couples think they have economic intimacy because they talk about money. Talking about money and being financially vulnerable are not the same skill, and most people don't discover the difference until the stakes are high. Here's where it gets complicated. Merging accounts doesn't create economic intimacy. It demands it immediately, with no transition period to build up to it. The account itself is just logistics. What it requires from each partner? Full visibility, shared control, zero financial privacy is the actual psychological event. And here's what determines how someone experiences that event. Not their values about money, not their income, their financial attachment style. Meaning the specific way they learned as a child to feel safe or unsafe around money, long before they ever met you. So if the account isn't actually the problem, what is everyone really fighting about underneath it? For someone who grew up watching a parent use money as control, joint access doesn't read as unity. It reads as surveillance. For someone who grew up in financial secrecy, separate accounts don't read as healthy boundaries. They read as distance, maybe even deception. Same proposed solution, two completely different nervous system responses. And neither reaction is irrational once you understand where it actually came from. Neither partner is wrong here. They are running two different blueprints, formed years before this relationship existed, and treating the disagreement like a present-day argument about logistics instead of what it actually is underneath, an old fear wearing a new account number. That's exactly the wall E and F hit, and it took them 3 fights to even name what they were actually fighting about. E and F have been together 3 years, engaged for 8 months. Both responsible with money, both financially stable. E wanted to merge everything before the wedding. One account, one system, full visibility. To E, that was what commitment looked like. F wanted to keep individual accounts and contribute to a shared account for joint bills. To F, that felt like the healthier, more adult structure. The first fight wasn't really about the account. F said no, and E heard it as F not being fully in. E pushed, and F heard the pushing as pressure to give up autonomy F had fought hard to build. 3 fights in, neither one was talking about money anymore. E was asking, "Why won't you let me all the way in?" F was asking, "Why does being in this relationship mean I have to disappear?" When I asked E what joint money meant growing up, E described a parent who controlled every dollar the other parent touched, who tracked receipts, who used money as leverage in every argument. To E, separate money looked like what came before the control. Merging was supposed to be the opposite of that childhood, full transparency, nothing hidden. When I asked F the same question, F described parents who quietly drained a shared account for years before anyone noticed. financial secrecy disguised as partnership. To F, separate accounts were the lesson, not the wound. Keep your own resources. Protect your own footing. Neither partner was protecting against the other. Both were protecting against a parent who was never in the room. So before you decide what your account structure should look like, what did joint money protect you from once? And is your partner actually the person you're protecting yourself from now? Here's the reframe most couples need and almost never get. The account structure is not the diagnostic. Whether you can sit with what your partner just told you without needing to fix it, defend against it, or quietly talk them out of it, that's the diagnostic. Couples who eventually land on a workable structure, joint, separate, or hybrid, are not the ones who agree fastest. They're the ones who can hold two different meanings of money in the room at the same time without treating the other person's meaning as an attack on their own. E doesn't need F to want full merging. F doesn't need E to want full separation. They need each other to understand why the other one feels what they feel and to design a structure that respects both nervous systems, not just one spreadsheet and one opinion about what looks responsible. This is also where an economic intimacy gap quietly forms. Not because partners disagree about logistics, but because one partner stops explaining their reasoning and the other stops asking. The structure gets decided. The meaning underneath it never gets resolved. It just goes underground, and it resurfaces every time money gets discussed again, usually with more heat than the actual topic deserves, because now it's carrying years of unspoken resentment instead of just a question about a bank account. The actual blueprint conversation here isn't joint or separate. It's what does money need to do for you to feel safe, and what does it need to do for me? And can we build something that does both without either of us pretending the other's history doesn't matter? That conversation takes longer than picking an account type. It is also the only version of this conversation that actually resolves anything. The objection I hear most: we already agreed on a structure, so we're fine. Agreeing on a structure is not the same as agreeing on what it means. You can land on the exact same account setup as another couple and be solving for completely different fears underneath it. If you never name those fears out loud, the agreement is sitting on top of an unexamined gap, and it will resurface almost always during a moment of financial stress, exactly when neither of you has the bandwidth to do this work calmly or generously toward the other. This is precisely the kind of conversation we map out in the Blueprint Workshop series. The actual language for naming what money meant in your house growing up, before you're mid-argument trying to reconstruct it in real time, under pressure, with no script and no patience left. You do not need a crisis to have this conversation. You need 15 honest minutes and the right questions. That's the entire difference between couples who fight about money for years and couples who resolve it once. E and F didn't end up merging everything. They didn't stay fully separate either. They built a hybrid, a joint account for shared expenses, individual accounts preserved, and one new rule: full visibility into both. Not because a spreadsheet told them to, because they finally understood what each one needed to feel safe. The account structure was the easy part once they did that work. Take the Blueprint Compatibility Assessment, link in bio, and find out where your own economic intimacy gap might already be forming. Love connects you. The Blueprint protects you.